Hi, my name's John, and you're looking at the work of Peter Rodolfo, which is here in the fourth portal on the first day of December 2020. And Peter works in memory, well, paint obviously, acrylics, and memory and the distortion of memory. And these are some of the street scenes that he paints of his local town, Great Yarmouth. This video is actually to discuss the work of Kevin Gavaghan, which is in our mind room. Hello, Kevin.
Hi, John.
And we're just going to ask Kev a few questions and find out a bit more about the work and what's inspired him and the reaction by others to this work. Kev, can you give us a little bit of a background on you and where you come from and what this is about?
Sure. So I was the youngest of 7 siblings in a large Irish family. Grew up in North London. So I was made in the UK by the Irish. And as a teenager, I developed tics Tourettes, something I got at about the age of 12.
Okay.
From then on, it's kind of probably the catalyst for high anxiety issues in my life and small bouts of depression through my life as well. I didn't really paint much as a child. I used to sketch a lot and draw a lot, but that was mainly as a kind of a release. I used to find it a huge release from my mental health issues, my tics and etc. So, but the painting come later in life. Once I could start work and I could afford the materials I needed, I started to teach myself how to paint, use of colour, and slowly went through different mediums, acrylics, inks, pastels, and in more probably the past 20 to 25 years I've sort of settled on oil paintings, medium. So which I find does exactly what I'd like it to do. It works for me.
So going back just briefly for the school, you had problems at school because of your tics. It wasn't really acknowledged, as I remember.
Yeah. So the tics come on at about the age of 12, which is kind of coincided with me starting secondary school, and we moved house as well when I was 12 as well, from Finsbury Park to sort of Enfield, further north in London, and I had to change school from a school that I used to go to in Holloway Road to an Enfield school. But I struggled with having to sit still in classrooms. I was seen as a bit of a disruption, I guess, from the teachers and my peers, and obviously, there's also the added element that some kids can be quite cruel sometimes, and they kind of say things as they see it. So I had to miss a lot of school because of my tics. I spent the best part of a year from second year senior, which I guess is now the year 8, out of school, and for a small part of that, I had some homeschooling provided to me by the local authority and education board there. But it was challenging. It's a very challenging time. Very confusing because at the time, tics. I'm talking early 80s here. So tics and Tourette's wasn't really a well-known, wasn't really very understood. So I was kind of diagnosed with asthma for probably the first 6 months, maybe more, of having it, and then gradually I got referred to Great Ormond Street Psychology Department, and they used to have myself and my parents and my siblings in to have meetings and group discussions to try and understand what was wrong with me. And so having missed school and having the challenges of a social life at that age, I started to find my footing with regards to sort of building my own, my own life in terms of taking back some of that control as a kid. But it was hard. And with regards to the psychology department, over that, so I was as a child, so I was under the child psychologist department in Great Yarmouth Street, and over that period of probably 3 years, they gradually understood that Tourette's or tics was the term they gave it into the sort of mid and late 80s. It was actually my GP in Enfield that sat me down one day and told me that it was called tics, and that it was a form of, just another form of anxiety, but you know, I just fit on that sort of spectrum of normality. So, you know, somewhere in that spectrum is me and what my condition was, and it was quite enlightening at the time to understand who I was and what I was experiencing.
So, picking up on this room, which is we call the mind room here at the fourth portal, what's been interesting is the reaction. We've had a fair few hundreds of people coming through. Not everyone buying things, admittedly. No one actually buying the art, well, besides a few prints that have been ordered. But the town of Great Yarmouth does have its struggles, as you may have noticed as you walk around. And what's been amazing is how quickly this room has opened up the conversation about mental health and personal issues. And that's not just with people who have been diagnosed with suffering something, but just people suffering stress and things. And what's interesting from my perspective is actually how engaged people can become immediately. I'm just getting off here, the bed, as of the big cushions, to move around the room, because they somehow relate to the space and relate to the paintings. So why do you think that is, Kev? Do you have any views of your own?
I think we're all very similar in a lot of ways. You know, we wake in the morning and we, you know, find ourselves putting on this disguise or this cloak on how we're going to face the world. But the reality of our emotions and our emotional state through behind that cloak may be something, you know, far more deeper and closer to some of the experiences maybe that I felt in my life. And I paint very emotionally, so what you see is really a kind of emotional state of a deeper level of feeling. That maybe people look at the work and find a reflection of themselves coming back at them, and that's why they sometimes, you know, it can be quite hard to look at and quite hard to feel the way they do, because it's opening a window into their you know, their inner emotions and their inner hidden side, I guess. But that's kind of how I like to paint. It's how I think it's important to open that and have that reflection looking back at you. And people do. I mean, I've had people really get attached to them and, you know, cry in front of my work and they don't quite understand why. And I can only put that down to is because, you know, my outlet is from my, you know, from those deep emotional states that I've experienced in my life, that I just transfer them onto canvas, and it's you know, it's certainly helps me. But they are honest. They are real, honest paintings, and they're a real reflection of a moment or a feeling or a state of mind at some point in my life that has just come back to me in that moment, and that's why I, you know, paint the images I do.
Can you just briefly, before we finish up, speak about your eye condition? Which
so, along with obviously the tics and the anxiety and that state of mind, I developed about probably 20 or more, maybe 30 years ago, I think, a eye condition called CSR, which is central serous retinopathy. And what it is, it's like a fluid build-up on the retina of your eyeball, or my eyeballs, at the back of my retinas, kind of like little blisters. And I guess the best way to describe it is a bit like putting droplets of water onto a pane of glass and then looking through those droplets of water, and things get distorted. And I can get them in any peripheral vision or more central. So when I noticed that there about 20 years ago, it was very right in my central vision, and I kind of thought there was something seriously wrong with my vision. I went to Moorfields to get an understanding of what was wrong with my eyesight, and they explained to me exactly what it was. There's no known cure for it. There's nothing they can do. But what they do know is that it's very prevalent in people of high anxiety or high pressure jobs. It's more prone to men over the age of 40. Steroids, they think, is linked to it. Steroid use, although I've never used steroids drugs, but I do suffer from high anxiety. I've known that all my life. So the link is there. And at the time when I first realised I had it, is I felt very low, I felt very down, and I thought, because I love my work, I love my art, and I love painting, I'd never, I thought it was something was seriously going to happen. I would never be able to paint again. However, what I chose to do, as with all of these elements of my life, is I chose to embrace it, and slowly and surely I started to distort my figures in a way that I see things sometimes. And so that's why you see these kind of fluid, distortion, rounded figures that I paint, because it is literally how I interpret and how I see things when I get the CSR flares up in my eyesight.
So to finish off with how you found this space and the place, the reasons behind putting this work up in a place which is actually talking about technology and the future of society, really, and how we're all going to shop and interact, is part of it is this, what should we say, this revealing of our inner mental health issues, which I think people are coming to the conclusion, and this is definitely being shown here, that more and more people are realising that actually they probably have an issue of some type, whether it's depression or anxiety, and it doesn't mean it's always there, but it comes and goes, and some of it's caused by natural factors: death, birth, moving, marriage, divorce. And I think where this room, when we bring in the technology, which is not going to happen in this stage, but will happen in the next stage, around these issues, that's going to be really interesting to see how people interact with those technologies. But in the meantime, what this has proven is how quickly people will interact with the painting. And for me, that's been a really big breakthrough. We had Meet the Artist last night. You had some conversations. You've been here a couple of times. How you found everything yourself?
I love it. I think this is a great concept to be part of. I've enjoyed it. I've loved every minute of it. And I also think that what this does, especially the mind room as well, is people feel comfortable to talk about themselves in the company of other people with similar issues or similar mental health issues, I guess, for want of a better phrase. And I think once, it's a little bit like therapy. So if they feel comfortable with it, then they can open up. And that's something that is paramount, is that we need to talk more about our inner emotions and how we're feeling. And because a lot of this anxiety is kind of the bottling up of emotional feelings. And I'm very lucky in being able to paint what I do and express myself the way I do. But not everyone does that. So if I can just give the viewer a little glimpse of my life, it may help some people to reflect on themselves and sort of say,
wonderful,
I need this.
So this is Kevin Gavaghan. We're in the Mind Room at the Fourth Portal. It's the first day of December 2022. My name is John. I've been here for the last few months. This is the end of stage 2 testing of the Fourth Portal, and we'll be closing this down and moving elsewhere in the next few days. But it's been a wonderful experience, and thanks for coming, Kev, and thanks for all your input.
You're welcome.
Enjoy your day.